What's up, guys? This is my first video for this channel anyway. All right. I want to talk about Playmates. Now, a lot of people have been talking about these figures and fairly positive reviews so far, yes. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I enjoyed them, but um, you know, one thing that I mean, I got a lot of gripes. Not just with these figures. This isn't going to be a video review, by the way. This is not going to be a review for these toys. Basically, what I think I need to do today is talk about Playmates and, quite frankly, their general lack of quality, not even just over like recently with the re-releases and the constant pushing of classic collection stuff that nobody wants, and the weird cash grabby crossover toys. I'm not here to talk about that. Like, this issue dates back as far as, I don't know, maybe even 2012, sometime after they put out the some of the basic figures for, their original Turtles line, or maybe even it probably began with the classic collection line. But then again, at the time when those toys came out, there wasn't really much collector base action figure representation for TMNT. In fact, aside from like a bunch of like the plethora of NECA cartoon stuff and some other companies out there, for the most part, TMNT and collector base figures isn't exactly as popular as like you would expect them to be. I mean, granted, compared to like other superhero properties like Batman, Spider-Man, or hell, maybe even Spawn and others, TMNT is by far the youngest. I mean, next year, TMNT will be officially like officially 40 years old. But yeah, like, I gotta get into this. Enough stalling. I gotta get into this. All right. So, as you can tell, for those of you who out there who have seen images and maybe even have these figures yourselves, you'll probably be able to tell that, yeah, these figures appear to be heavily customized, which they are. And I'll be honest, I made them look a little closer to the movie or than Playmates did. And my now again, these figures for the most part are pretty good. But I have an issue with the fact that I had to customize these figures to make them look close to the movie. Now, like, customizing figures, like, I'm glad I did it. It took me many, 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 many hours to get it done. Like, this is by far like the longest I have ever taken customizing any action figure in my collection. I'm surprised I got all these done in a day. Like, it took me most of the day to get this done. Like, yeah. And I'm still not even done because Playmates, for some reason, decided not to paint that here. And again, I know what you're going to say. Well, Playmates doesn't fully paint figures. Playmates has never really done. Playmates has never really done that. And I would beg to differ because, well, yes, this is more excusable. Like, these parts and this part of the shell, like, were unpainted, and it was like an extreme eyesore to look at. Because, like, I could understand on like the 2012 figures and the 2003 or maybe even 80s figures, because again, like how the figures were sculpted and what they were designed after that wasn't exactly like a necessary part to be painted. Not to mention, the figures were sort of at like a small enough scale, or that, I guess, like something like that would go by. But it really bothers me because, like, well, if you keep track of social media, and like if you keep up with like action figure news and updates, Playmates for San Diego Comic-Con is releasing a prototype of these figures. A prototype of these figures. Well, here the weapons are fully painted. Uh, and yes, these aren't even the original nunchucks that came with Michelangelo. These are super. These are the. This is the nunchucks from a Super 7 Ultimates figure where I had taken off the chains and just put some bendy wire. Luckily, I had already had these before. I had gotten this figure. Otherwise, I probably would have tried and failed miserably to customize the original ones, or just kept them with his original ones. Which I have so much to rant about here. But case in point, I don't think I feel like Playmates just intentionally does stuff like this. Like, there have been way too many times in recent years where Playmates has released seemingly a really awesome action figure, but then it has some stupid fucked up flaw, or like some terrible design choice put into it that can't even be overlooked, because it retroactively just ruins the entire figure. Like that recent, well, the even more recent TMNT Stranger Things Mirage figure, where for some weird reason they had where for some weird reason they had sculpted their hands in a weird way so they could hold an accessory that nobody who would buy these would even want. Not to mention the Stranger Things characters figures were freaking terrible. It's like it's honestly a competition or a race for the worst between Playmates and BSTAXN. Though I'll be honest, BSTAXN lately has been putting out much better quality stuff than Playmates has in over a decade. And this is also something I have to get into here. Why are their hands sculpted like this? Where like they can barely hold the weapons. That's something that I also had to. I used a lot of super glue with this. I don't have any primer or any sort of like other materials to keep the paint on, so I usually just paint, then put super glue over it. It's weird, like how a guy sitting in his walk-in closet can better improve and fix your figures with ink pens, super glue, cheap acrylic paint, and already like my work on the figure that you made is like a million times better than yours. This isn't even like, all right. God, I really sound really negative here. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I like and enjoy these figures. Like, when especially like a lot more than I expected to. And I don't hate Playmates. Literally, like, most of my collection is just Playmates figures and Super 7 Ultimates of the original Playmates figures. Like, that is most of my action figure collection. But another thing I have to rant about here is like the sculpt work on these, on some of these heads. Like, I'm gonna be like, Raphael is the worst here because, again, if it were not for like my customization work on this, I am certain that he would just look horrible. Like, for one, his, like, for some weird reason, his eyes were shaped in some weird way. Not only that, but again, these designs are clearly based off, like, like a 3D cartoon design. So it's not like they have the excuse of like the Rise figures where the designs don't exactly translate very well to action figure form, which, again, I call complete BS on, and I'm going to show you my customers of those in a bit. But like, yeah, like my problem with them not just like painting the eyes on the mask parts instead of sculpting it in is, well, for one, these designs, like, quite frankly, like, are based on like 3D designs, like designs with like actual, like, oh crap, designs with actual like depth to their look. Like, it's gonna be like very noticeable, like, if you just take some blob of plastic and just color some eyes on it, and especially like if it's supposed to be representative of an already three-dimensional design. Not not only that, and speaking of that, like, these turtles have a very like stylized design. So like stuff like the mid part of the shell not being painted, like, I don't even think they're gonna even, again, I wouldn't have even like been able to point it out if they hadn't like sculpted this part in like detail. Because like he can't even put like his arms fully to his side. Well, one, because of his belt, and two, because, well, they even like sculpted the design of the middle part of the shell. And again, like, seeing that part like unpainted or like undetailed is like kind of an eyesore. Like, I can't unsee that. I can't unnotice that. It's almost, it's like, if like a, God, I don't know what analogy to use here, but like, I don't know, but it's just one of the, I don't know, it's just one of those things that, like, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Not that it was ever not noticeable, because again, it sticks out like a sore thumb, and it's something that when I saw it in the store, it irked me. Not only that, but like, they also sculpted the part where Raph has like some sort of a grip tape, or like, I'm recording this on my phone, so, and again, this is the first time I've done a video like this. Like, they've sculpted like the tape part around his thigh right there. But they, for some reason, left it completely unpainted. And again, I understand that it's like a kid's toy line, but like, can you really even use that excuse anymore? Because back in 2003, and back in, even with the Rise figures, they didn't have this problem. They didn't have this problem. Now, granted, the only paint issue with the Rise figures was, I guess, they didn't. This is a custom Donatello, and I guess the problem with like the Rise figures is I guess they left this part sculpted but completely unpainted, which again, this isn't exactly one of those TMNT designs, especially like with how they decided to translate it to action figure form, that a part like this being unpainted would go unnoticed. Or like how they sculpted gloves on his hands, but those went unpainted, and I completely forgot to even paint those, but whatever, I'll just leave that how it is, because again, I put in so much, like, so much work doing it. This took me like a couple days to do that. Yeah. Now, when I did these, like, I based it off like the concept art by Andy Suriano rather than how they looked in the cartoon, which, don't get me wrong, I love this show and I love the designs, but I feel like the figures look better with, they're like original designs. This part was just left purple, but I sculpted all that. Well, not sculpted, painted all that properly. But yeah. Now again, the only reason that the Rise figures looked, a lot of people say that these figures looked ugly, and I think it mostly had to do with the sloppy paintwork on the eyes, the somewhat messy sculpting, and a lot of people just didn't really like Rise of the TMNT at all, which I'll be honest, especially like if you were like a fan of the A show, but you also hated Rise, I feel like you probably didn't even watch the show, because they're not even all that much different, if I'm being honest, if you watch them back to back. Except for, like, I don't know, maybe one might be funnier than the other. And one has clearly better animation. But that's besides the point. Like Playmates, like, shouldn't even be, like, getting away with this stuff anymore. And another issue that I have with these figures that I just absolutely cannot stand is they still have an issue with scaling these figures properly with each other. Like, it doesn't make any sense at all. Like, because with the classic collection figures, for some weird reason, they make these turtles like nearly fucking 7-8 inches tall, like almost as tall as, if not bigger than, a McFarlane DC figure. But yet whenever they like make villains, they're the same size as like 2012 Mikey squatting. And again, like, why? Like, there was a point where, like, again, they would have gotten a pass for this because they couldn't afford to like keep like figures in a certain scale, but I don't even think they can use that anymore, because again, they've been putting out a shit ton of these like classic collection figures that are like fucking 8-inch scale figures. So I feel like there's some way that they could, like, at the very least, make a Build-A-Figure. As much as I don't really like Hasbro or like McFarlane figures that much, I do it. That's a real money making idea. Like, that's one thing I really can't stand about Playmates, is that they're literally sitting on a gold mine, and they're doing nothing with it. And this really irks me, because like Playmates tried to temper with the rights and legal stuff with Super 7, which honestly, like, I don't know, whoever's above Playmates and all that, I would have completely taken the rights from them and given it to some other company. If if they had done that, and I had been in some sort of executive control, because for the past several years they had been doing absolutely nothing with the brand. Like, do you have any idea how many characters from the original, well, again, the original 1988 to 1996 toy line wasn't exactly made for adapting a bunch of characters from the cartoon, and it just made its own universe, really, for the most part. But how many characters from the 2012 line, from the Rise line, like, there are so many characters and figures that went unreleased, completely unmade, and it's just, it doesn't make any sense. It's like, why is this company, like, so, it's like they intentionally screw over their customers. It's like whenever we have something good to say about them, they put out some garbage that makes us go like, oh, well, now you fucking lost us. And again, like, this is really upsetting because, like, again, I can't get over, like, if you can tell here, with the originally the figure did not have any detail on the teeth. Like, because in the movie, Michelangelo has braces. Even on the box, it details that he has braces. How, or exactly why is it that somebody with an ink pen, like, literally just a few small, just a few, like, small dots on the teeth would do so much to assist this design? And again, I'm not to get into Raphael. He, in the movie, and even in, like, the concept designs, and they can't even use the excuse that these are based on the concept designs because, well, uh, quite frankly, just no, they can't even use that excuse because, well, these are clearly more reminiscent of the movie and not the concept designs at all. So yeah, in the designs, Raphael has a missing tooth. Now, at some point before, um, Playmates would have found some way, like, if they couldn't find a way to sculpt that in there, they would have found some other way to get around that. Like, I don't know, maybe sculpting his mouth in a way where, like, only, like how they did with Leonardo and Donatello here, where they just made the mouths like this, like the original Mirage comic style. But here, they, well, I shouldn't say sculpted, but painted all his teeth on him. And again, it's one of those things that really stick out like a sore thumb, especially, like, when you know that these are supposed to represent, like, the design and look from the movie. So it's like, you can't even see it. Like, this company and its general just proud laziness and jackassery really astounds me. And I'd be honest, I cannot stress enough how, like, again, if it were up to me, like, Playmates would completely lose the license over something, over stuff like this. And again, it's not, and it's And I'm not making it like a mountain out of a molehill. Like, they've been doing stuff like this for years at this point. Years. Like, this Bebop figure from, when did this come? Like, when did this come out? What, like, sometime back in 2016, 2014? Like, dude. Yeah, 2014. Like, they didn't even sculpt the bottom half of his stomach. They just, like, so much of this is unpainted. Like, are you serious? Like, so much of this is unpainted. Like, just wow. Not only that, but like, all right. Let me see how he scales. I'm gonna put him next to Leonardo. I'm gonna put him next to Leonardo. All right, like, though, like, he wasn't like super tall in the cartoon, he still is supposed to tower over the turtles a bit. Like, an easy fix to this solution is like, they could have done what they did with the snakeweed figure and just like put the figure in, just like put the figure in the box in, like, I don't know, like 2 halves or something. Then, like, I don't know, make some of the accessories like where you have to plug them in, which they also did with the new Rocksteady figure, which I did not have and did not see in the store. And again, my collecting with this line might end it just here, because again, I already have most of the, like, at least every character that has been released so far, all the Super 7 collection. So me getting the Mutant Mayhem figures, unless some collector-based line comes out, which I doubt will happen anytime soon, unless, again, like, who knows, maybe Mayfix hopefully will put something out for this version of the Turtles. Who knows? I mean, I'd hope so, but who knows? Like, yeah, I wouldn't really see much point in getting that, getting the rest of the figures, especially since, like, well, what would be the point in me, like, getting the Mutant Mayhem version of Leatherhead when I already have, when I already have, like, this one. Again, I can barely fit him in the frame. All right, we're just gonna have to pick up the phone here. When I already have this one, right? And one thing that I kind of noticed here was that the Super 7 Ultimates Leatherhead fits exactly, like, at the exact height that if Playmates had done it right, 2012 Leatherhead would have with them. Which, again, I should also point out, by the way, that with the 2003 line, they didn't really even have any issue with scaling the figures properly with each other. In fact, all the figures were scaled perfectly with each other. So for them to just go back and start treading on this old issue again, it's really insulting, honestly. Like, just, like, and I don't even know, like, if Playmates somehow did decide to make some sort of collector-based action figure line out of these, I feel like they would somehow be a million times worse than their classic collection figures. Or, for all I know, knowing them, they'd probably just make the I don't know, they would probably just put little stuff like, I don't know, Donnie's the little details from these turtles onto the Classic Collection Turtles and probably call it a day, knowing this company and knowing how they handle figures these days. And again, like, come on, man. It's like, where's the passion? Where's the, like, we aren't in a day and age anymore where, action figures are just playthings for kids now. Like, we aren't in a day and age anymore where somebody can just buy a toy out of the store and just put it up for hundreds of thousands of dollars on whatever website, and now like everybody like goes like clamoring for it, because again, like, the action figure market nowadays is so huge that new figures are being announced like every week at this point. So you can't even like get away with this anymore. It's like, man, I feel bad that I even had to make this video, because it's like kicking them while they're down, you know what I mean? Oh, crap, let me get the thing standing again. And another point that I completely forgot to mention, like, I was thinking of how to talk about this video for like several days now. My issue with them, like, kind of doing this with these movie designs is because, well, one, let me get this thing to stand up better. All right, there we go. Like, now I understand that these are, they even textured the skin on these. So again, it's not like it's completely lost on them that this is supposed to be based off a 3D design, but again, here's my example. These 2012 figures, a lot of people wondered why they didn't look like the cartoon. Why did they look like this? They were based off the promotional art, or promotional drawings and concept art that Ciro Nieli had made for the show before it came out. Which also, by the way, in those original concept designs, the turtles also had 2 toes, but I guess for the figures they decided to make it 3, so they found a way to salvage the sculpt and put that in here. But yeah, like, look at this. Like, there's actual like depth to like the designs through like the mouth sculpts and the eye and the sculpts on the eye mask. Like, they did the battle damage perfectly. They didn't really skip out here. And as much as I crapped on the classic collection turtles, I will have to give them this. They do very much resemble the turtles and how they looked in the first season of the cartoon with their head sculpts. And the 2003 turtles, they looked great. 2007 turtles, I mean, the eyes were a little small on most of them, and the head sculpts were a little off, but they did get the proportions right for the most part. The figures were scaled nicely with each other. All was good. So again, I don't understand why, come time the 2012 series comes back around and this comes out, that they start going back and start making figures out of scale. They start leaving stuff unpainted. They again they just completely half-ass it. And it really bothers me here because like again like Mutant Mayhem is like just the other day like they got like a promotional like spot thing on CBS News in Detroit. TMNT being promoted on a local news network. Now I thought Turtle Mania had returned in 2012 when the 2012 series came out, but I haven't seen TMNT so big since. Again, I was a kid born in the year 2003, so like, but I mainly grew up on the 2012 show, and I thought that series was popular. But no, like, not only that, but like, this is gonna be like the first time a TMNT movie is gonna get a cartoon. It's it's got all these big name celebrities behind it. Like, you're telling me like probably one of the biggest projects, one of the biggest TMNT projects since Last Ronin, which again didn't really even like. So again, they basically got to roll out the red carpet for this. You know, there is a lot riding on this for them not only to make sure that this is a good movie, make sure the promotional material is all together and good and everything. Because like for the past little while, you know, TMNT like wasn't really. I mean, it was like big. A lot of people knew about it, but again, you would be surprised like how many people didn't even know that the TMNT even got like reboots back in 2003 and 2012. So again, they got to make sure that this time they get it right. That the turtles' names get everywhere. Like, and they decide to put out, and again, these aren't bad little figures, but compared to everything else they've ever made, these, quite frankly, well, bad, not exactly, but they just kind of pale in comparison to like a lot of their previous work, you know? So, I don't know. And again, like BSTAXN, they're catching up to them. I mean, they're putting out these IDW turtles. I mean, they made that awesome new Krang figure. And again, Super 7, like, they got pissed off when they were showing them up. So again, I don't know. Playmates, you got to do better. You got to, because I don't know. Like, the only reason I even think that I even like these figures as much as I do, or even like them at all for that matter, is probably due to my like customization work on these. But yeah, that's all I had to say on Playmates. Peace.